Sunshine and color, music and crowds. The fine October puts on its best face for Newfoundland's great day. From all parts of the world come many famous people to the opening of Memorial University's new campus. Foremost among them is a great and gracious lady from the United States of America, Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt. Here, at Torbay Airport, she is welcomed with all due ceremony by His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Campbell McPherson. Mrs. Roosevelt comes as the personal representative of the President of the United States of America, enhancing with her charm and dignity the official opening ceremonies. Present at the airport to meet her are many of Newfoundland's leading figures. Premier Joseph R. Smallwood, guiding spirit of the celebrations. Honorable J.R. Chalker, Honorable L.R. Curtis, and Mrs. Curtis. Honorable J. Pickerskill, Honorable Dr. G.A. Frecker, Honorable P.J. Lewis and Mrs. Lewis, Honorable Dr. F.W. Rowe and Mrs. Rowe. Memorial's new Chancellor, Mr. Roy Thompson. Memorial's President, Dr. Raymond Gougeot. And among all the important grown-ups, a young lady representing the youth of the province, for whom especially the university has come into being, Premier Smallwood's own granddaughter, Lorraine, adding her welcome to Mrs. Roosevelt. Another visitor is John George Diefenbaker, Prime Minister of Canada. As his plane touches down, the sun breaks through the clouds to harbinger the warmth and cordiality of this memorable occasion. The Prime Minister grins broadly as he sets foot in Newfoundland. Mrs. Diefenbaker greets Mr. Thompson affectionately and is herself greeted by the granddaughter of the Attorney General of the province. The day has begun. The ancient city of St. John's is ready.
The Memorial University of Newfoundland. The official installation of the new Chancellor in the presence of the Government of Newfoundland, heads of churches, and regents, senate and faculty of the university. The Chairman of the Board of Regents, Mr. Phelan, opens the ceremony. Minister of Education, Dr. Frecker. Dr. Trecker reads the instrument of appointment. We, reposing a special trust and confidence in your loyalty, integrity, and ability, do constitute and appoint you, Roy Herbert Thompson, to be Chancellor of our Memorial University of Newfoundland. Mr. Thompson is invested with the robes of office by the 3 deans of the university: the Dean of Arts and Science, the Dean of Applied Science, and the Dean of Education. The new Chancellor, resplendent in his silk gown heavily embroidered with gold braid. The promise is administered by Mr. Phelan. Mr. Thompson begins his inaugural address. The new incumbent, like his distinguished predecessor in office, Lord Rothermere, is one of the world's leading newspaper proprietors. To the Sunday Times of London and scores of other publications, he can now add one more, Memorial's student newspaper, The Muse.
Great parade. From Cape Race and Cape Chidley they come, 12,000 strong. Twirling battens, flashing feathers, prancing knees, and colored sweaters, a riot of red under an autumn sun. From Twillingate and Fogo, Burgeo and Bonavista, St. Barb and Labrador, from every corner of the province they come to share in the celebration of the new university, their university. Men with drums and flashing sabers, baggy pants and tinkling tabors, rolling eyes and wanting razors, Shriners beat the band. It's a triumph of organization, culmination of months of planning in government offices and drill in the schools. Pretty legs and chaste white collars, sober tunics, waving banners, solemn faces fixed in wonder. Marshaled by the Royal Canadian Legion, the huge parade of students marches along Elizabeth Avenue, past the university and the reviewing stand in a 90-minute procession. 300 distinguished visitors, many of them famous sons and daughters of Newfoundland, home for the occasion, received the salute of youth. Visitors and dignitaries applaud the students, watched by the enormous crowd lining the avenue for 2 miles. There is no parking and no privacy either on Elizabeth Avenue this day, as citizens swarm to the scene. Crowd upon the rooftops. All Newfoundland, crackies included, honors the day, the opening of the splendid campus. The new buildings, completed by the government of Newfoundland at a cost of over $12 million, form the nucleus of an institution whose impact on the life of the province may well prove decisive in the creation of the new Newfoundland. Now at last, the university can grow vigorously, fulfilling the promise of its founders. Already, Phase 1 of the master building plan is completed. 4 buildings, comprising an arts building, a science and engineering building, library and gymnasium. 2 student residences, part of Phase 2, are already open, with more to follow. It's a far cry from the old University College, which, founded in 1926, had long served as Newfoundland's only institution of higher education. The new university inherits an honorable tradition enshrined in its motto, Provahito in Altum, translated by Memorial's first president, John Lewis Peyton, as jump off the deep end. And finally, students from the university itself, young men and women from every part of the province, taking pride of place in the great parade. Everyone is there. The parade is over. Never one to ignore an assembly, Premier Smallwood calls for 3 cheers for Newfoundland. And the crowd turns towards the university.
Now the academic procession leaves the Arts Building for the ceremony at which the key of the university will be presented by Mrs. Roosevelt on behalf of the government to Mr. Thompson on behalf of the university. The procession consists of students, officers of convocation, faculty in full academic regalia, members of the Senate, the Board of Regents, heads of churches, ministers of the Crown, and distinguished visitors. This ceremony will be the climax of the government's part in the creation of the new campus, the point at which control will be formally vested in the academic body. The procession makes its way into the huge gymnasium which is being used for the occasion. Is packed to capacity, not only with the academic community and civic dignitaries, but also with members of the general public and school children representing every part of Newfoundland and Labrador. Premier Smallwood opens the proceedings. The audience finds him at the top of his form. This is one of the greatest moments in his remarkable career. The ceremony is being broadcast and reported all over Canada. The Premier presents copies of the key to Mr. Diefenbaker, the Duke of Devonshire, who is representing the government of the United Kingdom, the Lieutenant Governor, and President Goujon. And finally, the key is handed to Mrs. Roosevelt. Roosevelt addresses the assembly.
It is, for me, a great honor to be here as the representative of our president and as your guest, and to be able to give to the Chancellor the keys of this university.
From the University of Coimbra in Portugal comes Dr. Armando Ugarte Cortazaro, one of the world's foremost scholars in his field of cartography, bringing with him an address of congratulation from his ancient seat of learning to Newfoundland's brand new. And following him, literally dozens of university presidents from all over Canada, from Toronto, McGill, and British Columbia, from Queens, Alberta, Laval, from Dalhousie, Mount Allison, New Brunswick, and farther afield yet, from Great Britain and the USA, they come in their turn to offer their own good wishes and those of the institutions they represent, as they hand to Premier Smallwood documents large and small, in manuscript, in print, in English, in French, in Latin, all bearing the same message, in which sister universities from all parts pay their respects to Memorial and congratulate Newfoundland's University on acquiring its splendid new home. This is the most complete assembly of university dignitaries that has ever met in Canada. Never before have so many presidents been gathered under one roof. Now, arrayed gorgeously in their full academic panoplies, one by one they greet the Premier and Chancellor. Rich crimson and royal purple, lustrous blue, vivid green, somber black and gleaming ermine, the occasion is a parade of colors, a feast for the eyes. Doctors and reverends, scientists and humanists, scholars, academic statesmen, the parade of luminaries of learning gives food to the imagination. Not only for those who know who all these great men are, but particularly for those who do not, the children of Newfoundland, for whom the pomp and ceremony, the color and pageantry of robe and hood mean this above all, that Newfoundland has come of age in the academic community of Canada, that Memorial is saluted and respected as an equal by older and bigger institutions, that the university is here to stay as an integral part of their lives. These children will grow up with the university as a natural part of their background, to guide them in their education and in their adult lives to a richer life than Newfoundland has ever known. But this ceremony, important as it is not the last. Far from it. Here the procession forms once more, as the university itself prepares to honor 19 of its distinguished visitors by granting them the honorary degrees of Doctor of Laws, Doctor of Letters, or Doctor of Science. The graduands move in solid red phalanx to the assembly hall. Bringing up their rear is Premier Smallwood. Stepping jauntily, relishing the moment with characteristic eagerness. Excitement is high as the solemn procession enters the packed hall. The Premier is summoned by the Secretary to the Senate to be presented for the degree of Doctor of Letters. The public orator of the university, although confessing to a certain trepidation on the occasion, draws such a pen picture of the Premier that the hall first rocks with laughter and then falls to impressive silence as the doctoral hood is placed upon Newfoundland's most famous son. Dr. Smallwood signs his name in the Register of Graduates. He salutes the Chancellor. and doffs his hat to the audience amid applause as tumultuous as even he has ever received. Receiving the degree of Doctor of Laws is His Grace the Duke of Devonshire. Sharing the somewhat strenuous oratorial function, the Deputy Public Orator speaks of Newfoundland's ancient allegiance to the old country, an allegiance here honored by His Grace's presence. So through the list of distinguished men, to whom in one way or another Newfoundland and Memorial University are indebted. Men to whom she pays honor as representing the worlds of learning, of religion, of industry, of statesmanship, which have combined to make possible the founding and expansion of the university, and the advance that that institution marks in the fortunes of Newfoundland. A former Lieutenant Governor of the province, Sir Leonard Outerbridge, is here awarded the degree of Doctor of Laws, a fitting tribute for one of Newfoundland's most distinguished citizens and one of the university's warmest friends. And so the academic ceremonial comes to an end.
But it is not the end of the celebrations. A state banquet brings together the largest and most distinguished assembly of Newfoundlanders and guests ever to meet in one place. A mammoth homecoming and a real Newfoundland scoff. Seafood, native salmon, and partridge berry pie. Writers and artists, statesmen and educators, explorers and bankers, businessmen and bishops pack a dining hall seating nearly 1,000 people, brilliant in formal evening dress. The toast to the Prime Minister brings the audience to its feet. Glasses are charged in Mr. Diefenbaker's honor. Prime Minister responds to the warmth of the occasion with a wit and adroitness that delights the assembly. He draws repeated laughter and applause. Newfoundland folk songs for Newfoundland Feast, the university's Extension Department choir. The audience joins in with the Squidjiggin Ground, perhaps the most famous of the Newfoundland come-always. And the author, Mr. Arth Scammell, takes a bow. Mrs. Roosevelt is presented by Premier Smallwood with a mink stole, a product of Newfoundland, as he calls it. She shows obvious delight as she models it amid the applause of the assembled guests. And then the climax of the evening, the introduction, one by one, of famous sons and daughters of Newfoundland. Mr. William Hackett, one of Canada's leading bankers. Lieutenant Commander J. Bursey, Antarctic explorer. Mr. J.P. Kennedy of the Bank of America. The Reverend Dr. Andrews, principal of Queen's Theological College in Kingston. Dr. R. Pilot, the artist. Mr. A.J.C. Payne, distinguished Canadian architect of Confederation and university buildings. The Honorable E.D. Halliburton, Minister of Agriculture of Nova Scotia. Mr. B.G. Roberts, formerly of the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority. Commander W. Raleigh Gilbert, direct descendant of Sir Humphrey Gilbert. Mr. A.C. Jensen, Chairman of the Bank of Montreal. His Lordship, the Right Reverend Bishop Hawkins. His Lordship, the Right Reverend Bishop Wells. The Right Honorable Lord Morris, son of a famous Newfoundland Premier. The Reverend W.T.R. Flemington, President of Mount Allison University. Mr. J. Galashaw, author and soldier. Mr. Edmund de Rothschild. His Excellency, the Most Reverend A.D. Leverman. Sir Wilfred Jackson, distinguished British colonial administrator. The banquet ends. The guests depart. But memories will linger. For many, the most vivid memory of all will be the students' parade. It is a promise of the future, unveiled with the opening of the university's new campus. From every part of Newfoundland and Labrador, the students have come to share in the celebration of an institution which will itself reach out to 1,000 settlements. For this is no ivory tower, but, in the words of Memorial's first Chancellor, Lord Rothermere, a beacon illuminating the province. Here at last is the key to the development of the richest resource of all, the young people of the province, young Newfoundland on the march.